to our Lupus Ontario webinar. Our topic today is your treatment and support teams. I will be monitoring the chat during the webinar. So if you do have any questions along the way, we will address those at the end of our presentation. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Jeremy. Jeremy is our fundraising and development coordinator. Did I get that right?
It's fundraising and marketing, but yeah.
Sorry, Jeremy.
Okay, you got it.
Okay. At Lupus Ontario, he will do our introduction.
So hi, everyone. You'll notice that Kathy Farron was supposed to be hosting originally this evening, but she does send her regards. And I do have a brief message from Kathy. So welcome, everyone. I would prefer to be with you all on this webinar instead of at a hospital ICU. However, sometimes a lupus flare requires one to stop other activities and to do what the body needs. In tonight's presentation, you will be hearing some ideas about different specialists, modalities, and other people that might be helpful to you in living your best possible life with lupus. I thank Sandra Williams-Reed for answering the call to present and discuss this material with you. Some team members you will be able to access directly by yourself, while others will require a referral. We each need to become our own best advocate and work for the services we need. I hope each of you will find at least one thing that you can implement to help you on your personal lupus journey. So with that said, I would like to introduce Sandra Williams-Reed. So Sandra studied travel and tourism at Seneca College and worked for many years as a travel consultant. She has traveled extensively and enjoys sharing her experiences with her clients, friends, and family. Sandra first became involved with Lupus Ontario after she was diagnosed with lupus in 1986. Not knowing anything about lupus at the time, she was directed to the lupus support group at Wellesley Hospital by the Lupus Clinic. It was there she learned about the disease and got the support she needed. In 1991, she moved to Ajax, Ontario, and later got involved with the Walk a Block for Lupus. She is currently one of the Durham Walk for Lupus coordinators and a facilitator for the Durham Lupus Support Group. Sandra has also volunteered at Lupus Ontario head office, the annual general meeting, the Italian dinner and dance, and she is currently a co-chair for the support and education with the board. Please help me welcome Sandra Williams-Reed.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. It is so great to be with everyone. Of course, you know, I cannot replace Kathy, so I will be presenting this material. I will put my own opinions here and there. Jeremy will have everyone muted. And at the end of this presentation, we will be open for questions in case you have any question you would like to ask. So it's great to see so many of you here. Lupus Ontario do appreciate the support of you, our members coming out to these webinars that we are offering to you. We do appreciate feedback as well. If there's anything in particular that you would like us to bring presentations on, we do appreciate your feedback. You can email us at support@lupusontario.org with your suggestions. So once again, thank you and welcome to tonight's webinar titled Your Treatment and Support Teams. Your teams. Your treatment team is made up of the licensed and registered healthcare providers. Your support team is made up of family, friends, support group members, psychological professionals, community and church groups, and others. And we look into details of both the treatment teams and the support group team. Throughout this webinar, we will be sorry about that. Throughout this webinar, we will be referred to your team worksheet. This is what your team worksheet looks like. So whenever throughout the webinar I mention your team worksheet, this is what I'm referred to. And after this webinar, I recommend you go to lupusontario.org/education, and you will be able to download one of these forms, and then you'll be able to create your own treatment and support team. And as we go through the presentations, we will discuss those more in detail. Also on the same page, you'll be able to find your treatment. These are just some of the ones we have, but you know, there could be others as well. And your treatment teams, of course, are, you know, your rheumatologist, family doctor, etc. Your support team can be anyone from your accountant to a family, to a friend, to even a volunteer driver. You are the CEO of your team. You make the choices that build or destroy your team. The choices and therefore the control are yours. Tonight, you will learn the tools you can use to help build the team you need and want with the ultimate goal of living well with lupus. This involves the mind part of the holistic, of the holistic nutrition, body, and mind. Your treatment team. The most common people most lupus patients think of are family doctor, rheumatologist, and nephrologist. But there's so much more to your treatment team. First, you need to know who you already have. And then once you decide that, then you'll look at your worksheet and then you'll create others that you would like to have on your team. Questions to ask yourself. My treatment team today is made up of, so for example, if you already have your rheumatologist, your family doctor, I would like my treatment team to include, so for example, you might want to include a physiotherapist, a chronic pain manager to that list. Payment for your treatment team will come from several different sources. The provincial healthcare, extended health insurance, or yourself. Unfortunately, not everyone will have extended health insurance. So if you don't have extended health insurance and you need additional services, i.e. physiotherapist, you need a nutritionist, a dietitian, for example, you will have to be able to pay for those services yourself. The bare minimum treatment that I suggest is your family doctor, a rheumatologist specializing in lupus, a registered holistic nutritionist or dietitian, a physiotherapist or kinesiologist. Helpful to have on your treatment team as well would be a ophthalmologist, a massage therapist, chiropodist, laser therapist, etc. on that list. your treatment team. There are some, not everyone will require the additional help of specialists outside of your rheumatologist. But if you do have other involvement with other organs in your body, you will perhaps need the following added to your treatment team: a nephrologist for your kidneys, a cardiologist for your heart, respirologist if you're having lungs problems, a neurologist for CNS and brain, that is the central nervous system, a dermatologist for your skin, an ophthalmologist for your eyes, which is a must if you are taking Plaquenil. And again, there's many others that are on the worksheet, which you will download, and you'll be able to add those as you go through it. The occasional times you might not be covered by OHIP for information for treatment. So usually within the hospital, most treatments will be covered, but if you do have to sometimes go for private treatment, those might not be covered. So when you are budgeting, those are things you need to keep in mind as well. Cost is always a factor. With your treatment team. So the purpose of the worksheet is to discover what you really need. Because if they're not covered by OHIP or a private plan or an extended health plan through your job, then you will have to pay for these services yourself. We will now discuss your support team. Most lupus patients think of their family and friends as their support team, but there is much more to your support team. The bare minimum that is suggested for your support team is a lupus peer support group, and Lupus Ontario do offer a number of support groups that are held, meetings are held monthly throughout the province. I will talk a bit more about support groups in a few moments. A qualified therapist through friends, and you might not think that's as such a thing, but usually people tend to say, you know who your through friends are when you get sick, because those are the ones who are going to be there to support you when you do need some help. Family members who care enough to educate themselves about lupus, a spiritual director. Most time we don't even ourselves know much about the disease. So when we are diagnosed, not knowing anything about lupus, we will start to learn. And hopefully you have family members who are willing to go through that process with you. But that means inviting them into your team and sharing. For example, Lupus Ontario have a lupus facts booklet that has general information about lupus. That is available to anyone. You can go online and you can download that lupus facts booklet. We also have some hard copies. So if you would like to get a hard copy, you can contact the lupus office again. So for example, if you were recently diagnosed, that's something you could, when you're meeting with your family members to talk about this new diagnosis you have, you can offer that to them so they can maybe educate and learn a bit about the disease. So that way, when you're going through flares, for example, and you say you're sick and you can't, attend maybe a family gathering, or, today you plan to go, but today you've woken up and you can't get off of bed. They will have a better understanding of your condition. A little bit about the lupus support groups that Lupus Ontario's offer. They are confidential groups. They are free. So when you come and join, lupus affects everyone differently, but we do have one thing in common, which is our lupus. come to the support group, you find other members who are going through the same thing you're going through or have gone through what you're going through. The support group have an understanding when you say you're in pain and you can't move, or you know you're having a moon phase from the side effects of your prednisone. And sometimes that is something that's really hard to explain to someone else, and for them to really understand what it means to, having all these side effects from your medication as well. So our support groups are there to help you. And again, like I said, we do have monthly support groups for the province. This is the most important promise you can make in your commitment to living well with lupus. And this is something you could write and put, on your bedside table or something that just reminds yourself. I promise myself to make a real effort to include the following new members to my treatment and support team. Because as you're going through the disease, those members will probably change as well. You will have to add new people to your treatment team, and you'll also have to add new people to your support team as well. Again, that is a short-term but an ongoing SMART goal for you to have. Communicating with your team. Living with lupus requires the development of a positive relationship with a healthcare team. This is often a challenge for many people because they feel intimidated by professionals who use words you don't know, or become nervous about asking for further information if you do not understand. I'll discuss this later, but one of the things we recommend you do, it is also available on the lupus website, is to download a form which you will take to your doctor when you go. So in that, on that form, I recommend that one of the first things you should do is in between each visit. So when you have your visit until your next visit, you want to write down any new symptoms or any issues you would have had. The worst thing is going to your doctor and walking out the office and you forgot to discuss something with them. Also on this form, you'll be able to write down any questions you might have to ask the doctor. And then you will be able to also write what those answers that were given to you by the doctor. So that when you go back home and you're reviewing it, you might not have quite understand something in the doctor's office, but he was in a rush to get out. You can later review that. And if there's something you still don't understand, you can always call the doctor office back and said, while I was there on my visit, you mentioned such and such. Can you give me further explanation? What sometimes happen as well is, sometimes we develop anxiety that can stop us from sharing important things with your healthcare professional. And sometimes you feel the doctors are too rushed and then you lose your focus and stuff. But your doctors and other healthcare providers are responsible for communication with you despite a busy schedule. One thing I would like to share with you, just from personal experience, and it's something when you visit the doctor's office, because sometimes we go to the doctor's office and they might be running behind or they might be delayed. Most doctors will schedule a certain amount of time for your visit, but sometimes perhaps they have an emergency. So a patient might come in who is in the middle of a flare, and that's something they have to deal with, and that might throw their schedule off. Because you can sometimes be the other person on the other side of the door, that's where empathy comes in, and you try and understand when situations like that arise, and hopefully don't get too upset and stuff about that happening. As a patient, you deserve the right to information about your health. It is important to remember that the relationships developed with your doctors and other healthcare providers requires commitment and work, just like any other relationship. Deserving information from your healthcare provider. Another little tidbit I would give, when you also go to your doctors, try and always get copies or reports of your whatever tests you do and whatever the results are, because then you could put that together in what I call my personal medical file. So whenever I come home from a visit, I will put my information in that file, and it's always something you have when you're visiting other doctors or when you need to review. Sometimes you get a flare and you need to look back maybe what had happened the last time you experienced a flare, what symptoms you're experiencing. So again, the same doctor's form along with copies of whatever your results are will help you with that. So when I said you deserve the right information about your health, ask your doctor's question. They are there to provide you that information. There are two things that may help you in developing that much needed positive relationship with your healthcare professional. The first point is to understand that members of your health team are human as well. They too have stresses to deal with on a daily basis. They may even experience frustrations when they're not able to offer someone who's dealing with a chronic condition such as lupus cures, because lupus, there is no cure for lupus. They can only do their best to help you, you know, deal with and live a productive life with this disease, but sometimes they might get frustrated. Another thing can cause frustration is perhaps you are in the middle of a flare. Now just be patient, because it might take time for them to find the right treatment plan for you to be on. So that is something you also have to keep in mind. The second thing in developing a positive relationship is making good use of the time you have together. When you feel pressured for time, messages are not always delivered with the same care that have more than when you have more time permit. So misunderstandings can occur. So that's why, again, it's so important to write information down. One way to get the help most from your providers is to plan an agenda of what you expect at each visit. And so this is also available on our Lupus website under the education page. And it's a handout questions to ask your doctor. So you basically, you know, your name, what is it, your appointment date, the time, and then below, again, this you would plan ahead. This is not just for the day you get into the doctor's office. So in between visits, you would write whatever has happened, whatever issues. If somehow during the time since the last visit, your medication dosage changed, you can write that information there. And of course, there's the section for when you have the questions you'd like to ask the doctors and the answers that are given by the doctor. Your support team is made up of many different people. Some will be your family and friends, some are peer supports, and some are in a professional relationship. Relationships do not just happen. They require input from both parties. To build positive relationships, you have to listen to the needs and not just communicating what you want. So for example, if you have a friend that's helping you, they might only have limited amount of time. But if you start having huge expectations and, you know, well, I need this, or I need you to do that, or whatever, we have to learn to respect their times as well while we're building these relationships. You will not get much support if you continually portray negative expressions, postures, words, and tone. Criticism will kill your supporters fast. They will disappear. Everyone deserves respect and gratitude. And there's that one little saying, if you don't remember anything else, it's that word matters. What we say matters. And we just have to be very conscious of how we're receiving and showing gratitude for what our support team is doing for us. And that's just basically, you know, if someone constantly get negative words and sees bad behavior, they might get worn out. So we want to try and keep everything receive whatever we get from our professionals as well as our friends and family in a grateful manner. Again, if a therapist only hears how bad you have it, how no one else suffers as much, that nobody understands, that no one will listen, this is almost guaranteed to drive away your support people. In any kind of psychological therapy, it is not their job to fix it. It is their job to help you see what your words, action, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are to help you learn ways to deal with them. Again, this is where being part of a support group will come in really handy, because you're with people who understand the frustrations that you do have to deal with living with lupus. So highly, you know, like I mentioned, Jeremy mentioned in my introduction, I am very much for the support groups. I have benefited greatly from a support group. And while you're dealing with lupus, I think most of us could benefit for a support group. So I do encourage you to utilize that service that is offered by Lupus Ontario. In peer support situations, either on one-on-one or in groups, the same rules will apply. Respect is a key to any relationship. You have the right to expect to be treated with respect. However, you must also treat each person on your team with respect as well. And this applies to conversation through Facebook, Instagram, regular mail, etc. It also means not gossiping or bashing anyone to a third party. If you have an issue or problem with someone, you need to speak to them directly. Gossip and slander will only hurt you in the end. You do not have to like everyone, yet you do have the responsibility to treat everyone with respect and dignity. You might be shocked by how often patients become totally rude or aggressive or offensive when communicated with their team members. It does not help to get what you need and can even get you fired or discharged as a patient. There's something at the hospital when I go there, and I always look at it because it's everyone should know that, but people, when they're not feeling well or when they're frustrated, tend not to always remember. And that is, no matter how you're feeling, you should always give respect to those that are helping you, especially you know, your medical team, because they're the ones who will either impact or not impact your life. So that is very, very important. Some people who refuse to do this will find themselves without all the help and support they need. Be genuinely grateful for the help you do receive and express your gratitude to your team members. Practice an attitude of gratitude every day. And that is probably easier said sometimes than done, but as the next slide, we'll talk a bit more about that in the next slide. When you do not feel well, such as when you have a lot of pain, difficulty moving, a lack of sleep, anxiety, frustration, etc., it can be difficult to stay positive and treat everyone with respect and gratitude. But unfortunately, that is something that we do deal with, but we have to try at least to show that respect and gratitude, no matter how we're feeling, or at least try to during these times. You also need to ask for and accept help when you need it. A lot of people, because of pride, pride is a thing that sometimes we have to let go. So for example, you're not feeling well, someone offers to pick up your groceries, and because of pride, you're like, no, 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 I'll do it. But in the meantime, you can hardly move and really should not be going out to shop for groceries. So we have to learn to ask for help and accept it when we need it, and sometimes put our pride just behind in those times where the need is there. This is part of having respect for yourself and taking care of yourself. And, you know, self-care is very important, because if you are just going to not take care of yourself, you probably will feel worse each day as you're having to deal with a flare or something like that you have to go through. So there are different choices you have, you know, when you need help. Different types of needs might be there. You have these choices. Resources. The patient's self-help guide, How to Talk with Your Doctor, is one of the resources that is recommended. The Intelligent Patient's Guide to the Doctor is another resource that is available. Learning how to talk so your doctor will listen. How to Talk to Your Doctor, Getting the Answers and Care You Need, The Best Half of Life. That is also a resource that's available. Your team is responsible for sharing, care, and listening. Self-education and support with honesty and integrity are within your control. The choice is yours. Live well with lupus, you're worth it. And just before I wrapped up, just one thing, when we are going through flares, or we think we're going through flares, or we're not feeling well, sometimes people think, oh, I don't want to call the doctor again. They're going to think I'm bothering them. I'm always calling the doctor. But you know what? That's what the doctors are there for, because the sooner we call that doctor, the sooner they'll be able to treat those symptoms we're experiencing, and the sooner that you will get better. So you have to learn to live well with lupus, but you also have to take care of yourself. So that is the presentation for tonight. I will open up the floors to questions, and I will answer as what I can. But like I said at the beginning, because this presentation was originally going to be put on by Kathy, and I might not have all the answers that you might have, but if you do want to send me an email at support@lupusontario.org, I will try to answer those. But I will now open it up. To the floor, and then I will try and answer what questions I can. Sarah?
Okay. Thank you, Sandra, very much for your presentation there. I know it can be difficult to present somebody else's content, and I think you did a fabulous job. We have a comment in the chat. I think it's important to build a team that are not just yes men or women, but people that will not hold back and give you their honest opinions or suggestions. Important to have many opinions on your team to make the best and informed decisions for oneself. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess that was that just a statement?
It was more, yeah, a comment.
Yeah, a comment.
Somebody
Okay.
wanted to share.
Okay.
Okay. And if any questions do come to mind at a later date, you can email support@lupusontario.org. We have a question here. What have your experiences been with stigma and lupus?
Okay, so my personal experience, when I was diagnosed with lupus. I don't know if you can get more stigma than that. I was diagnosed in the 80s. And during that time, that's when not lupus, that's when AIDS was really common. So, you know, when you said you have an autoimmune disease, right? Because that was just, I guess, one of the ways that we were, you know, that was explained to me. So you would say you have an autoimmune disease. And I remember one of the first thing people would thought, oh, do you have AIDS? And I'm like, no, 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 you know? So I think they're dependent on how sometimes people project it. I've been really fortunate. I haven't had to deal much with work stigma, with having to be sick and having to take time off. I worked with a really good company who had good benefits in place. So if I wasn't feeling well and I needed time off, I could take short term, but not everyone have that option. So, so from a stigma point, yes, it is an illness. Luckily for us in this century that we're dealing with, it is more common. People now have access to the internet. During my diagnosis, we didn't have those options. People are more aware of learning than judging sometimes, but sometimes we will be judged because in a workplace, unfortunately, I think that's probably one of the worst places that you will find judgment because it's like, why are this person off again? Why is this person sick again? And unfortunately, that is something that we do have to deal with. So from that was probably the worst thing for me. My perspective was when I was first diagnosed and I started using the term autoimmune without realizing how it was associated with, you know, some of the other diseases at the time. But now when I say lupus, unbelievable, you know, not everybody will know about it, but it is definitely more aware, and it's some give credit to our organization like Lupus Ontario, who is bringing awareness out there. Okay, hope that helps.
Okay. Great, thank you, Sandra. We have another question. Are there any recommendations or referrals to, for example, physiotherapists, nutritionists, or dietitians?
Usually your family doctor can give you that, or I mean, if you are needing a referral, because most plans will ask you if you do want to go to a physiotherapist or a massage therapist, you might need a doctor's note, but your family doctor should be able to give you that referral for those additional services. Or if you're having a problem, you could certainly ask your rheumatologist for that as well.
Thank you, Sandra. Another question, what is your advice on whether or not to withhold your diagnosis from your employer?
Okay. That is, I'm not going to say it's a personal thing because to some extent it is. Some people will judge you. Some people might discriminate against you, but you do have the labor law behind you. You should not be discriminated against because of health. If you do feel you are being discriminated against, you could take it to the labor board. You can only, I mean, you don't have to tell, you could tell your employee that you're not well. Do you have to give them an actual diagnosis? Maybe not. One thing I did, I learned, but that came later on in life, was I was on disability because I was ill and I was off. And it was actually not my job who told me this. It was actually, I learned it, funny or not, from the insurance company, from my disability, that all jobs, they have a duty to accommodate you. And that's also, I think, is as part of the labor board. If you're ill, they have a duty to accommodate you. The job might make you feel like they're accommodating you, but it is their duty to accommodate you. So for example, if you need to reduce your hours, for a period of time. Usually your doctor will give you the note or whatever. You don't have to say again what your illness is. They just have to say due to a medical condition, you will need to reduce your hours, 3 days a week or 4 or 5 hours a day. But from a work perspective, there are laws to protect you. Not that the companies will always honor those, and they do have a duty to accommodate you while you're ill.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. We have another question here. What can we expect if we visit the center? How long should we plan for in the first visit?
I guess this is their first rheumatologist visit, maybe? No, what's the center?
I'm not too sure. Nadia, if you can, the center in Markham. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess maybe it's at the hospital. Usually, I guess at a first assessment, first time assessment, you should do it. Most doctors will give you maybe an hour to an hour and a half. So perhaps plan for at least that, but maybe book 2 hours just in case, because if it's a first visit, there's going to have to be information taken, your medical condition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So probably should give yourself, I would say, maybe 2 hours.
Okay, thank you, Sandra.
Okay.
So that's it for the questions in the chat. If anyone else has any more questions or comments, please feel free to type those in the chat.
I'll make a comment as far as your treatment team goes. If you are fortunate to have a good doctor, someone that you can talk to, because with lupus, there are flares and remission. So you're always experiencing, sometimes the next flare you have is totally different. Your flares are not always the same thing. So that's why you're on this journey. I call it the lupus journey, because it is a journey, and there's going to be ups and there's going to be lows, but a really good doctor really makes all the difference. So if you are fortunate, sometimes you might have to go a little ways to get to these doctors, these specialists. But if you have a really good one, it is so important, because building that relationship that I spoke about is so important, because when you are in times of need, so when you're in times of flare and you need that support for perhaps your job, the letter, if you're not able to continue to work and you might need to go on disability, there's lots of forms and stuff to be filled out. And having a good relationship with your doctor really helps, because then they're there to support you and assist you. And that is really, really important, because if forms are not filled out properly for insurance companies and stuff like that, you're going to really have a hard time. So yeah, when you have if you have a really good doctor, be grateful, be thankful, always show that gratitude. That is really, really important, because a really good doctor is so important as far as our ongoing care matters. And I've been very fortunate. I was diagnosed at the lupus clinic, and I've always gone to the lupus clinic. So I would say I probably have always had the best of care. Not everyone has that opportunity, but there's an amazing lupus clinic in Toronto. And again, that's my personal experience with them. Others, but if you can get into the lupus clinic, it's always one of the best places to really get to.
Okay, so Sandra, it doesn't seem like we have any more questions in the chat.
Okay, well, I'm definitely always available. Again, like if you do have Or if you think of questions after this presentation, you can email support@lupusontario.org and you will get a response. The forms that I discussed is available at on the Lupus Ontario website. Just give me a moment, one moment.
Oh, Sandra, we have a question that just popped up.
Okay.
Where is the clinic in Toronto? I guess the lupus clinic.
So the lupus clinic in Toronto is located at the Toronto Western Hospital, which is at Bathurst and Dundas Street in Toronto. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen quickly again. I'm just going to go to the education page. Okay, so this is the education page. Usually you can find our list of our events. For example, our webinars are there and the registration is also there. You can get additional information. And the forms that I discussed earlier, on the education page, of course, we have a number of different articles that you can relate back to. Presentation and handout. So this is where you would go and you would download the worksheet that you will fill out for your for your treatment and support team. So including who is currently part of your treatment team and who is not. Our webinars are usually posted as well on our education page. And there's also a number of different articles and stuff that you can do, but very important information is there. And also on our support page, one second. You will find a list of our support groups, Durham and the Ottawa group, the provincial dates are there. You can register right from the page there. And we, of course, have our monthly provincial online group as well. The dates are there, so you can just go and register from that.
Thank you, Sandra, for that hands-on view of the Lupus Ontario website. We have another question that's come in. Is there a lupus center in Hamilton?
Yes, at McMaster. So a very good doctor of mine has just relocated there. So they're affiliated with McMaster, the hospital and university there. So yes, there is there. You can get a referral if you're in that region and get a referral to that location at McMaster. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I think that, is there a lupus center in Markham?
Not a lupus clinic. There are rheumatologists that are available at the hospital. So if you're in that region and you would like to see a rheumatologist, you can certainly ask your doctor to give you a referral to a local rheumatologist, but there is no lupus clinic there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are any more questions, please pop them into the chat.
And just a reminder, we're speaking of support team, and we did discuss that support team does include, and I hope you'll all think of Lupus Ontario as part of your support team. We are here to support the lupus community. And we try to do, again, the webinars. Pre-COVID-19, there was a number of events we had, the Italian dinner dance, other events like that, which of course will not be happening this year, but we have our walk that we have every year, and that's a great way for bringing awareness to lupus. So if you are available to get involved with our walk, Jeremy is now starting to put together. It is going to be a virtual walk again this year because we are still going through COVID. So please, if you're interested, contact myself or contact the office in doing a walk in your community. A couple other things before that we also have coming up. We have a bi-weekly ballet/exercise class that we are having. We have one on this coming Saturday. They are Saturdays at 4 p.m. We would love you to join us. They're not impact workouts or anything. They're just easy movements, but a really nice Emma. She's amazing. She's a former ballerina. She also has lupus and she's just given back to the community. So if you'd like to join us Saturday afternoon at 4, for that, we are doing bi-weekly. So for the month of March as well. For those of you who are not members as yet of Lupus Ontario, I'll take this opportunity. Membership into Lupus Ontario is free, but we do encourage you to sign up, and you could sign up at lupusontario.org, because then you will get all the invitations to all the events that we're having, as well as the monthly online newsletter. So if you're not a member as yet, we do encourage you to become a member of Lupus Ontario. And this year, again, our annual general meeting will have to go virtually because of COVID. So that will be held on March 20th, the annual general meeting. So I hope you will be able to come out and learn more about and some of the things that Lupus Ontario is doing for our community. Okay.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for your presentation today. I'm sure we've all walked away with a little tidbit for building our support teams with us. And again, if anyone has any questions, you can forward those to support@lupusontario.org. And you can go to Lupus Ontario website under support and resources or education to find more information with regards to the content that was shared today.